Good afternoon. I realise that we're between you and lunch, so we'll try and keep this short and snappy and give you a load of great content. Fernando, you've been in Asia for quite some time. You've been with Visa for 25 years.
Just starting.
Yeah, newbie like me. You've overseen the activation of FIFA and the Olympic Games, and you've been in the region since 2004.
Yeah, and I think, listen, I'd like to celebrate the fact that ATM is 18 years old. And I remember a few years ago, we were talking about the rise of Asia. And since 2018, we've had 3 Olympic Games, a men's World Cup, a women's World Cup, a rugby men's World Cup, a rugby women's World Cup. So I think Asia has been kind of busy the last few years. And I'm really lucky because I work for a sponsor of 2 of these big events, the Olympics and FIFA. So the Qatar World Cup, the Olympic Esports Week in Singapore, the Women's World Cup have been phenomenal for us to activate with our clients here.
Yeah, we'll hear more about that as we go through the questions. Chris, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Chris, you've been with Cisco for 8 years. You've spent your time quite a lot on an aeroplane between Singapore and Sydney. Now you've moved back to Sydney. But you look after McLaren Formula One, the PGA of Australia, and also DM Cycling, and work out how WebEx gets used within those properties.
Yeah, it's been it's a really good time at the moment. We took on a lot of partnerships during the crazy years of, I think that's how we term them now, isn't it? The crazy years of 2021, and it's really a time at the moment on building on those. The fan engagement has changed and the partnerships have changed in the sense that during those years it was about getting the product to the fans, and now the fans are back and they want to be engaged with the sport 365 days a year. And while you have your seasons, which the Formula One season seems to extend 10 months now, I think, but you have your other properties, whether it be football or whatnot, they're 365-day-a-year products. So leveraging our technology and working with those where we're looking to assist those brands and mature those relationships to make it a 24/7 product similar to what was just discussed then.
And my background before I got into sponsorship, I was actually 15 years in the tech industry with 5 years with HP, 10 years with Nortel. And very much around showcasing technology in sport and entertainment. So, yeah, after my own heart.
Yes.
Ed, nice to see you too. Hello. So, Ed, you look after Cathay Pacific's brand marketing, loyalty marketing, marketing communications, and you oversee the sponsorship of the Rugby Sevens, as well as a lot of cultural sponsorships.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, it's my pleasure to work with the sponsorship of the Sevens. It's a strange thing. A lot of people may not know, but Cathay was the first brand, you guys may not know, the first brand to ever sponsor any kind of rugby in the world. They did that in 1976. And then, so I think the first World Cup that was a commercialised one was in 86, I think, or 84 after that. So, yeah, I think Cathay's had a big role in bringing out the checkbook and making these events happen. And I think what we see is that the Rugby Sevens to us is almost like a family member, which makes contract negotiation a little bit difficult. But, it's something that, it's kind of so intertwined with our culture and the culture of Hong Kong. We'd love to have Formula One, but we don't. So, yeah, Rugby Sevens is probably our preeminent international event. And we've just grown around each other over time. And it's different from just sponsoring an event. I think it's almost like 2 cultures moving together, which can be a lovely thing.
Yeah. We're talking about the global sports industry, and by the end of 2023, it's going to be worth nearly $64 billion, US dollars. By the end of 2027, $80 billion, and by the end of 2030, according to PwC, $109 billion. So, got some work to do by the sounds of it. Asia's the fastest growing market within that due to the rise of mobile and digital. Also the increase in entertainment content and a lack of deep-seated generational sport in Asia, unlike perhaps with the US. So from a brand perspective, Fernando, what have you been working on over the last year?
Well, I said the Men's World Cup. I know it kind of feels it was already the last calendar year, but for me, I work on fiscal year, so it was this year still. The Men's World Cup, the Women's World Cup has been extremely successful for us. I think coming out of the dark years of 21, it was great to see stadiums full of people. So we saw that in Qatar. The Women's World Cup I knew it was going to be positive. I just didn't know it was going to be so positive.
It's really amazing.
I think that's what's been keeping me busy. And as a brand, we don't do these things by ourselves.
Yeah.
So what kept me busy was working with hundreds of our bank partners, our fintechs, our merchants that activated these big sponsorships with us. So that's what kept me busy, and it's been super successful.
Yeah, I think you said that in the last World Cup there were so few clients working with you on it, and now the Men's World Cup significantly changed that. So
well, it's more on the women's side. I think we always had very little trouble convincing our banks to do stuff with us on the Men's World Cup. The Women's World Cup 4 years ago, we had 6 banks in the whole of Asia activating the Women's World Cup in France. Fast forward 4 years, we had 81 clients. So that kind of on its own speaks for the popularity of the event.
Yeah, totally. Ed, talking about long-term partnerships, and you started to talk about that just now a little bit, and about how you grow together. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that affects you and what you need to do around that, and what you've been doing over the last year or so?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. Jasper opened the day talking about standing room only for OpenAI conversations yesterday, and it's definitely something we all need to know about. But the marketing industry, I mean, we are just totally driven by the new and the latest thing. And I think sometimes we take our eye off the important things. And I think what we've seen with technology over the years, it actually is often getting between people. And if you think about our children, people wearing headphones all the time. I mean, we love TikTok, but people are really, the number one relationship is with their phones these days. So I think part of what we see is that it's good for society and it's good for brands to bring people together. I loved hearing, it was very interesting to hear from YouTube this morning from the gentleman, Mr. Anand, saying that TV is back. Even if you just, at the event, which is, I'll talk about in a minute, but if you're together at home, rather than everyone going into their own rooms, watching their own device. So I think we see that this is really important. It's obviously really important for a travel brand because you want to travel to something. So I think this is the true generator of value. And for Cathay, for Singapore, for Hong Kong, all of these places, you need these entities that people want to go and attend.
Experience.
Meet with your friends, meet new people, and be together. And I think that's what Rugby Sevens has been about. We have we're also sponsoring the West Kowloon Cultural District in Hong Kong. I don't know if people are aware of that, but M+ is this fantastic new facility for arts. As much as we love the sports and the weekend of activity, but that's also great. But to me, it's just a way for people to come together and to socialise. And I think in this age of technology, I think it's really important. And so we're actually increasing our investment every year in the Sevens. The stadium doesn't get any bigger, but I think its importance is growing over time.
Absolutely.
I think to Ed's point then, how quickly the success of an event or the attention on an event can change due to technology. And we're starting to see that now. The organisers are doing their dynamic ticket pricing or not. For example, the World Cup in Australia just recently.
New Zealand.
And Australia and New Zealand, excuse me. I might need security to get off stage here. No, it was fantastic. Leading up to that, Cisco was a partner, along with and the focus on that and the attention to that World Cup really only built in the week before it hit. It was, everybody knew it was happening, but when you look at ticket sales and whatnot, the minute that started, everybody just went bang, and it was the marketing strategy and then just the attention. It snowballed really quickly, and all of a sudden, you saw stadiums being readjusted, you saw complete sellouts, and then ultimately, when you got to the finals, irrespective of who was there, supply outstripped, or demand outstripped supply. So that really close leading up, and you've got that couple of weeks before the event, and they hit it, and the proliferation of the attention. We're also seeing something similar with the Cricket World Cup in India coming up soon. The organisers of that tournament are holding back a lot.
Yeah.
And they've only just, you're starting to see the critical mass, and you're 2 weeks out from the start of that. So that whole long lead-up process is getting compacted to the last couple of weeks before the event.
I heard just to build on that, someone told me that the Women's World Cup in Australia was the biggest ever rating event in the history of television in Australia.
Yeah, that's what
We
James
know
said
Australians love their
yesterday.
sport.
One
That's
match.
just gone to another level.
Yeah.
I think this combination, is it the novelty or the new combination of things? World Cup, women, it just feels like it's unlocked another level of attention, and it just got people so excited in Australia. It was great.
Just to put things in perspective on that, we always have a lot of trouble to convince our banks to come with us and promote a pre-sale for tickets. This time we didn't have any trouble.
Yeah, right.
We actually pooled money, media money we had allocated to promote the pre-sale, to kind of promote tickets being sold, because all the tickets we had, they were all sold out.
Yeah.
So like within days of the pre-sale starting, usually it's 10 days.
Yeah.
And within days, everything was sold out. So we're kind of like, oh, this is actually, we knew it was going to be special, not this special.
Yeah.
So it didn't come as a surprise that it took off as it took,
Yeah.
because the early signs were there already, how people wanted to see this event.
I mean, to go back to the rugby, it may be something that rugby needs. I mean, a lot of people know that rugby at the club level anyway, it's struggling apparently. I'm not a big rugby person, but the World Cups and everything work fine. But it may be that women getting involved, in the same way they've got involved in AFL in Australia, it's now totally boomed as a family sport. And maybe that's what's going to help rugby and rugby sevens go to the next level too.
And I know it's an old cliche, but it's the old grassroots. It's really important. And to the point with World Cup and sevens and all the major events, what was the other really visible thing with the World Cup in Australia recently and New Zealand was those offline fan engagement sites. And, they initially had them planned in the capital cities and whatnot. And then it had to proliferate to being locally based. There was one in every community around the cities and whatnot. And I think it's that desire, and what we're doing with our partnerships is really getting into that offline fan engagement. Yeah. People want to go back to events, and they want really good experiences, like unique experiences. It's not just about going and sitting there. They want the pre-match. My mum's pinging me now. She's at the Giants versus Buffalo Bills game in New York that just finished, and she did the whole tailgate party thing and whatnot. I'm a bit scared about that, but but that whole event day experience and providing that is key. People
it goes back to what Ed was saying about the whole experience. It's the start to the finish. It's
that's right.
That's what Sevens has done well.
That's right. So for anyone who's been to the Australian Open, I think they were one of the first ones that built a whole kind of festival around the tennis courts. When I used to go as a child, it was you just go and see the tennis and you go home. Now it's a whole kind of F&B party. I mean, it just goes on. And it seems to have transcended sport. It's become like a cultural thing.
Yeah.
So in Hong Kong, they're building this amazing new stadium, this Kai Tak Stadium, where the old runway used to be. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. So the journey to there, and then the sport, and then the entertainment around the outside on the kind of the grass area. I think this is how we need to think about sports these days. It's not just what happens on the pitch. It's the broader experience, because that's got more maybe the community aspect and the social side as well.
Yeah. I think you were saying about that, Chris, with your sponsorship, certainly it's the 24/7, 365 days a year, and it is the whole experience. So it's the before, the after, and the during.
Indeed. And then we're starting to see some of the other partnerships that were exclusive to Europe or the US, them now being expanded globally. For example, Team DSM, the cycling team, the Dutch cycling team, pro cycling team, our partnership's just been expanded to global, and we're working with them at the moment for how they can activate in Asia. We have a series here, a product here in Singapore with the Sprint Series that's set up like a Formula One or a racing track through to the Tour Down Under in Australia. So they're interested in expanding their reach to their audiences. It's very visible at the moment.
Technology's been talked about a lot. AI, obviously, the buzzword, and we heard from Casper and Candina yesterday around that. Tell us about some of your experiences using technology in activations recently, Fernando.
So just going back to the earlier point about what happens outside the stadium is also important. Bring it back to Qatar, we had this thing called Visa, Masters of Movement. We had an interactive 5-a-side pitch where 120,000 people kind of went through the experience. That's roughly 2 stadiums full of people, big stadiums. And basically people play 5-a-side football, and at the end of the day, we would create an NFT with their movement on an interactive pitch. So it was one way to get a really good souvenir of them playing at the World Cup. So that happens on the pre-match. We're all about creating frictionless experiences with people at these events. So we're all about making sure that Visa is accepted from the moment you buy your ticket, you buy your plane ticket, you buy your hotel, and then when you move to the stadium, you take your public transportation. When you are at the stadium, you buy your F&B and your merchandise without any obstacles. So FIFA Women's World Cup Australia and New Zealand was the first FIFA World Cup that was cashless.
Yeah.
So cash was not accepted. If you are only a cash carrier, you could go and buy a Visa prepaid card to kind of bring you onto the sort of the cashless environment. We actually did some cool things in some stadiums. This prepaid card was a digital card as well. And after the match was over, you would update the card art with the score of the match. So it was not just a static card.
Yeah.
It was a sort of a live version of a card.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Ed, I think you've been using some technology with some of the work that you've been doing as well, and some learnings maybe.
I could share a failure, which is not often what we do in these conferences, but, you know, in the spirit of, you learn through your failures. Yeah, I mean, like all of us, we're always trying to use new technologies and do new things. So we had at the Rugby Sevens, you got the halftime entertainment as a sponsor. You have your allocation of what goes on the big screen. So we thought to try and push our new lifestyle business, we were going to give away all of these lifestyle prizes. So to disseminate the prizes, we had this idea of using RFID technology, and if you were nearby, you could kind of, get on the system, and then you could download one of these prizes. And then later on, we had a QR code. Basically, what happened is, when we got thousands of engagements, but it was just too much activity. We were pushing our technology agenda because what we wanted to see, but really what the people were there to do was to have a good time. It's just a cautionary tale. When you're pushing, you're not necessarily taking the audience's view, the audience's side. And I think nowadays what we really realise is that people, they just want to have fun. Yeah. So as long as the technology enhances that, it's great. But anytime you're kind of pushing something, get ready to have a miss.
Adapt.
Yeah. So
It's for us, I mean, the technology that Cisco provides whether it's into the stadiums, with our stadium solutions, the data that's carried, the Wi-Fi network, the broadcast solutions, the data intensity of what's coming out of sporting events, and that's for everything, whether it be broadcast and you're going, the broadcasters are segmenting and providing the viewer 20 different ways they can watch it and who to follow and whatnot, through to the fan experience in being able to get their TikToks or their Snaps or their YouTube videos or Instagrams out as fast as possible. It all comes back to the fan experience, and I think where I can see it going with sport is similar to where it is in the music industry, where the live product is going to become a lot more of a bigger proportion of the revenue contribution to the sport, as TV and the consumption habits for mobile and shorter patience times, like we're seeing in Singapore with Taylor Swift and Coldplay and everything that's going on at Sports Hub and all the events coming up there. I think we're going to see ticket prices increase as the experience becomes better. And what we're seeing from a Cisco point of view is stadiums is the big focus at the moment. The investment in stadiums is just immense around the region, and it's all focused on getting people into the ground earlier, spending more, and then wanting to come back and spend
things
again.
delivered to your seats and those sorts of things.
And technology, I mean, our technology seems to, it slides into the background and delivers that experience, but it's critical to providing that overall fan experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe the point of the gentleman before talking about TikTok, I think from the traditional days of sports sponsorship, you had the TV audience, and that was a big part of the sponsorship agreement. But nowadays what you're finding is, of course, that is maybe declining as the main audience, but now you've got a lot of people tuning in through TikTok or other channels. And we found actually that our audience, our reach, through using all of the KOLs that we brought in, it doubled our reach.
Yeah.
Because you're just leveraging all of their little mini audiences. And it was probably, a better quality reach than we would have had just through the traditional broadcaster reach alone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the monetization of all those sorts of things as well from a brand perspective and being able to use different platforms.
And it helps you reach another audience as well. I mean, I think if you go out through the broadcast audience to the sport, you're reaching the diehard fans. But if you go out through the TikTok, influencers or the other KOLs, it just helps you to broaden your message. You reach people that maybe they didn't go that year, maybe they'll go next year because they've heard about it, from that person.
And I think it's also about the attention span as well. We talked yesterday with YouTube about shorts and things like that and just getting it into the right format for the audiences that you want to be talking to.
Right.
I had a funny scenario. It's happened a few times, and I need to be really cognizant of it now. Is when a really close sporting match is getting close to the end, of turning my phone over. I'd paused. I've had a few occasions where I've paused the match, like had to run off quickly and come back. And you're sitting there with your phone. You're always twinning between your phone and your phone goes absolutely nuts, and you realise you're 10 seconds, 20 seconds behind in the broadcast and the messages and the alerts, and you're like, that ruins the last 20 seconds of the match. So I now make a purpose, whether there's a slight delay in the broadcast or you're on an over-the-top app and you've pressed pause or whatever, the social and the mobile experience, it can be a real buzzkill. So
Stay in sync.
Yeah. 2024 is coming up. You're obviously going to be busy.
Yeah, well, we're also a bit of a travel company ourselves, right? Paris 24, it's going to be a big thing for us.
Yeah.
It's a key destination market for most of the Asian countries. I said before, we've had 3 Olympic Games in Asia. 2 of them didn't turn up the way we intended to be, with either no audience or very little audience. So hopefully Paris will be a fantastic event. We're all hoping for that. We're hoping to get people, making sure that people are getting the live sport experience that they're craving for. So we're hoping to make sure that Visa is the sort of the partner that goes along all the way to Paris with that. So that's what's going to keep me busy for the next year.
Yeah, Olympics is obviously we're a key partner as well. It's a huge focus for the company, but within Asia, and it comes back to the point before about the appetite for sport in Asia. We've got a lot of key properties that originate out of the US or Europe or Australia. There's a real desire now for us to look at key properties within market, within the Asian markets, whether it's in Japan, in Indonesia. It's obviously a huge football market and a growing market. So we'll look to continue and look for opportunities to expand in those markets as their sports, the sporting infrastructure develops, professional sporting infrastructure develops.
Yeah, and you were talking about the events that you run with the PGA and the sort of the male-female split on that as well, and I guess you're going to be continuing that into 24.
Indeed. We continue to expand with PGA of Australia on the WebEx Player Series, which was the first tournament in the world when we started about 3 years ago that was male-female amateur playing for the same prize pool and playing side-by-side. We've expanded that now to all abilities. And that tournament goes from strength to strength, and we're expanding that geographically across Australia. And it's the popularity that grows and grows as people want to get into the local communities and see professional sport.
Yeah. Ed, I think you've got Cathay coming up as well.
Yeah, well, it's the last Rugby Sevens at the Hong Kong Stadium. So for anyone who hasn't gone, this is your last chance to go and see that, which is a pretty unique thing because of the proximity of the stadium and the bars and everything down the road. And it's pretty cool. So that'll be 2025 will be the first one in Cathay. But yeah, the Olympics are coming up. With the Tokyo Olympics, it was just really great for us. I think there's a real awakening of sport in Chinese society, certainly in Hong Kong and around mainland China. Every city in China has a marathon, it seems. Tennis is absolutely booming in China. They've got Wei Bing and a whole bunch of like top 50 players now. It just feels like it's kind of going to the next level. And I think in Hong Kong, that's never really taken sport that seriously with Siobhan Hoyi at the Tokyo Olympics winning gold. People are more excited about the Olympics and sport than ever before. So, we'll hopefully continue our sponsorship of the Hong Kong team and, just try and be involved in the excitement. Just try and help people get there and fly the athletes around and just do our job to help out.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
I think we're almost there on time. I think we've got a minute left. Anybody from the floor got a question for our brands up on the stage? Can't see very well.
I've got a question for Ed.
Ask what's happening with the Sevens stadium and stuff. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so it's
That's what I was about to
I don't want to go into too long because I know I'm in Singapore, but the Hong Kong has never had, one of the reasons why we couldn't get Taylor Swift is that we don't have a really big stadium that's covered. So for noise control reasons, you just can't have those kinds of people who want to play a bigger stadium. So they've got this new stadium called Cathay built on the old runway, in the harbour. So that opens from end of next year, or basically beginning of 2025. So for the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens, it's the last year in the Hong Kong stadium is next year. So it's quite unique because it's right in the middle of Hong Kong with the jungle and the skyscrapers. It's pretty amazing. So that's the last year, and then it'll be moving to
The South Stand is no more.
Well, there's going to have a new one in the new stadium. Yeah, so they'll try and recreate the chaos of the old one and the new one.
I don't think that's possible somehow.
I don't know. I think they're going to try, but yeah.
That was going to be my question. I was in Hong Kong recently.
Yeah, so I'm extending an invitation to everyone to come and attend the last Rugby Sevens. It's end of March. I promise you'll have a ball, and maybe we can get you into the Cathay box. We've got a pretty big one. Yeah, come to me later.
Great. Thank you, Fernando, Chris, Ed. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.